All right. As always, I'm going to give everybody like a minute or so to join in if they're going to be running a little late. But we'll get started here shortly. Just going to share the link. Then we're going to get cracking. All right, everybody. Welcome into the Green Zone for NFL Week 2. As always, I'm your host, Sean Redden. And this week we are brought to you by Garage. Well, it went away. Garage Beer by Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey. I'm just kidding. They're not actually sponsoring me. I just felt like cracking a cold one leading up to Thursday night football. That being said, as always, we're going to go over every game in this week's NFL slate. Starting off with tonight, Thursday night football between the Bills and the Miami Dolphins. Feel free, please join the conversation. Submit any questions or comments you have. If there's a topic or a betting way that I did not cover, feel free to chime in. Submit any questions you have, and try my best to monitor them and put them up on the screen. But no further ado, let's jump right into the action. The Bills at the Dolphins here on Thursday Night Football. The Dolphins are a 3.5 point favorite with the over under at 48.5 points. I really searched hard all day, all week to try to find an edge on the line or on the total in this game, and I could just not come up with nothing. Honestly, I wanted to play the Bills, slight lean towards them, but Josh Allen, phenomenal in his career on Thursday Night Football. The Bills historically, not historically, kind of just recently have owned the Dolphins. They won a high percentage of the latest matchups. And Josh Allen, like I said, absolutely crushes on Thursday Night Football. But that being said, there were a couple guys who are out there in the betting space that are historically known for being absolutely terrible with their picks. And one gave out a whale play of the Bills today. So hard pass on me on either side in this one because I lean the Bills, but I can't bet it um, with that out there. And then the total looks right to me. Both offenses struggled early on in that game. Both kind of got it going late, but the total looks right to me. But I do have two props that I like in this one. And the Dolphins have typically had a great home field advantage due to the Florida Heat, with the sun hitting directly onto the opponent's sideline. But this being a night game obviously negates that factor with the sun beating down on the opponent. There's not going to be sun out there in Miami during this one. And the Dolphins' offense was not operating at the level I expected them to, without a lot of new pieces to integrate. I thought the offense shockingly got off to a really bad start last week. And now they've always struggled against the better half of the league, which I think the Bills would fall under that category. Even in the last couple seasons under McDaniel, when the team has looked improved, they still struggled against the top half of the league. And the Bills' offense is no different. They also started slow versus the Cardinals, fell behind early in that game. And the defense, I expected to take a step back this season, but they actually played a lot better, just like the offense did as that game went on Sunday. They've been running a lot since Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator last year for one of these matchups with the Dolphins, and the Bills actually threw the ball 38 times in that game. Now, since Joe Brady's become the OC, the Bills have become not a run heavy offense, but as opposed to the offense that they were running before Brady took over, I would classify that as run heavy because they're definitely running a lot more than they were since Brady took over as offensive coordinator. But that being said, they did throw the ball 38 times in the one matchup they had with the Dolphins last year while Brady was the offensive coordinator. And if the Bills are going to be throwing it at that volume with no clear number one target behind Keon Coleman on the outside for the Bills, I like Mac Hollins over 16 and a half receiving yards. He's not a great receiver. He's not going to wow you, obviously, but he has size, he has speed, and honestly would just need one catch to cash this. Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel, nope, they did not pull away from Mac Hollins in the number two wide receiver conversation. So, and Hollins is priced lower than them, only at 16 and a half yards. I will definitely take a stab at Mac Hollins over 16 and a half yards. He ran 20 routes last weekend. So, if a guy's going to be able to, on the field, running routes for 20 plays, it only has to get me 16 and a half yards with a quarterback like Josh Allen throwing to him. That's something I'm definitely interested in. I think there's value on Mac Hollins there. Now, also, Josh Allen has been dealing with a little bit of a hand thing this week. Obviously, it's not going to really affect his play. It hasn't really been that of note. But I do think that the Bills are going to be more inclined to give James Cook the goal line carries as opposed to just letting Allen just run up in there, get hit, and going to try to protect him a little bit in this one, especially when you have a running back the caliber of James Cook. And James Cook is sitting at plus 170 tonight for an anytime touchdown. So nothing on the side or total for me, but I do like Mac Hollins over 16 and a half yards and James Cook to find the end zone tonight at plus 170. Now, game two is the Saints at the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a 6.5 point favorite with the over under at 46.5. Look, I talked all last week about how much I dislike the Saints team this year, especially because their offensive line. I just think they're going to be abysmal. You didn't really get to see that last week because they played the terrible, terrible Panthers, who I actually thought was going to look a little better this season. Boy, was I wrong. That offense and Bryce Young looked as bad as they were last year, if not a little worse, especially when you consider the upgrades that they have at the wide receiver position this year. And the Cowboys offense looked fine last week versus a very good Browns defense. And they're going to be able to get after the passer in this one. This is the week where I think you see the Saints' weakness at the offensive line stand out. They should be able to harass Derek Carr, and I expect the Cowboys' offense to be able to do enough to cover this number. 6.5 is decent amount in the NFL. But that being said, I think the Cowboys cover this one easily. I am not high on the Saints team at all this season. The Buccaneers at the Lions. The Lions are a 7.5 point favorite with the over under at 51.5. Now, these two teams played a great game in the playoffs last year, with the Lions ultimately prevailing and would have actually covered this number had that been the spread in this game. But that game was 17-17 entering the fourth quarter. Now, coming into this season, I'm obviously higher on the Lions than I am the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers had a lot of key departures on the defensive side of the ball, which has me put a lower ceiling on in terms of what they can do this season. I'm not as high on the Buccaneers as I am the Lions coming into this year. But 7.5 kind of just seems like a lot here. The Lions look good last week. Both teams look good last week. But the Lions, I mean, you were playing a banged up Rams team, missing guys on the offensive line. And obviously, they lost Puka Nacua early on in that game, and the offense didn't miss a beat. I think the Buccaneers can score with the Lions here. And 7.5 just seems like it's too much with these two caliber teams. Now, the Browns and the Jaguars are the next game with the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 3 point favorite with the over under at 41.5. Um, I have to see the Browns injury report in this one before I pull the trigger. They were missing their tackles last week, and it showed versus the Cowboys. Deshaun Watson, who I don't think is really any good at football anymore, but he was under the rest the entire game, had no time to throw. And if the Browns are going to, the Jaguars obviously don't have the pass rush as the Cowboys do, but if the Browns are going to be missing their tackles again in this one and have O-line issues, then I just can't back them here. But I also don't know if I trust the Jaguars. This is going to be a wait and see the injury report and monitor it. And I'll have a solidified opinion on this one on Sunday once we have more of a clear vision on how this Browns offensive line is going to work. The 49ers at the Vikings. The 49ers are a 5.5 point favorite with the over under at 46.5. Look, the 49ers shut down Aaron Rodgers last week, but now with the Vikings coming in, they have the number one quarterback in the league. Just kidding. It's still Sam Darnold. The Vikings defense really confused Daniel Jones last week with their ability to disguise their packages. They're not going to be able to have that same success in this one. Obviously, Purdy is a monumental upgrade over Daniel Jones for the caliber of quarterback that they're going to be facing this week. And the Shanahan offense makes things so simple for Purdy to go out there and be effective that I don't think the Vikings are going to be able to confuse this offense and Purdy at all. And the 49ers defense should also make things really hard on Darnold in this one. And then this Vikings offense lacks weapons. Obviously has Justin Jefferson, but outside of Jefferson and then Aaron Jones, who looked pretty good. But if you saw the 49ers defense on Monday night, they absolutely took Brees Hall out of that game for a majority of it. So I expect them to have no issues here with Aaron Jones. And I think they're going to make Sam Darnold look like Sam Darnold in this one. I would only lay the 5.5 with the 49ers. Next game up is the Chargers and the Panthers. The Chargers are a 4.5 point favorite with the over under at 38.5. Now, the Chargers have a pass rush that can make life hell for Bryce Young and his Panthers offense, especially with the lack of playmakers that they have outside for the Panthers besides Deontay Johnson. But the Chargers also themselves lack playmakers outside. Lad McConkey, the rookie out of Georgia, looked really good in the slot. But again, he's only a slot receiver. He's not going to be like a game breaking guy down the field. Quentin Johnston remains to be seen, their first round pick out of TCU last year. It remains to be seen how good he can actually be in this offense. There's a guy that they're going to need. But now Joey Bosa ended up on the injury report for the Chargers today. And I'm just currently not interested in this game at all. If the Chargers get good news on Bosa as the week goes on, then maybe I'll take a look at them. But right now, the way this offense looks for the Chargers and with the concern on defense with Bosa's injury, it's just nothing for me in this game right now. The Raiders at the Ravens. The Ravens are an 8.5 point favorite with the over under at 41.5. Now, I feel like the feeling around this Ravens team after week one is a little misguided. The game ended up coming down to the wire, but they were fairly dominated for much of that game versus the Chiefs last week. And they were fortunate that the score was as close as it was. They scored, looked great on the opening drive, but as we know, teams come in and they have a scripted game plan to start the game, and that was really the only drive this Ravens offense really looked good. They went after that touchdown, they went stagnant for a while. And now the Raiders, there's not a lot that I can say that are positive about the Raiders team overall. But their biggest strength is their pass rush, which you didn't get to see a lot last week. But they also went up against one of the best tackle duos in the league with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. And the Ravens don't have that offensive line with that caliber of talent. I think you're going to see Max Crosby and this Raiders defensive line put pressure on Lamar, and he's going to have to scramble to make plays. And I just don't think it's going to be like just run up and down the field as a lot of people are expecting in this one for the Ravens. And Antonio Pierce has shown that he's going to be a conservative head coach, especially last week. They were right in that game with the Chargers. He punted on 4th and 1 late in the game, not knowing that there was a chance that he might not even get the ball back. If he punted, he still chose to do so. And when I'm going to back a team, getting points, just hoping that they keep a game close, I love a conservative coach. I want the guy who's going to be kicking field goals when he's supposed to, punting when he's supposed to, and that's Antonio Pierce so far in his coaching career. I actually really like, not really like, but I like the Raiders plus 8.5 in this one versus the Ravens. The Seahawks at the Patriots. The Seahawks are a 3.5 point favorite with the over under at 38.5. Now, I should absolutely hate the Seahawks. If you subscribe to my Red Hot Locks as part of my Dub Club, you know that I gave out a plus 1100 parlay on Sunday, and the only leg that lost was Seattle minus 6.5. We lost by the hook. Second time this year we lost a parlay by the hook. That was plus 1,000 or more. Hate it, but we're close in the early season. It's always tough to gauge because we don't have any new data to go off of. So we're gonna hit a few of them as the year goes on. But that being said, I actually was really impressed with the Seahawks defense. They had a really high EPA against the run. The Patriots' main reason they had success last week versus the Bengals was because they were able to pound them on the ground with Ramondre Stevenson. They're not going to be able to do that in this one versus Seattle. And I also think the Seattle secondary looked pretty good given they faced rookie Bo Nix for the Broncos, but they did their job outside of that last drive that blew the backdoor cover. But that being said, overall, they looked really good. And as far as offensive talent goes, I think the Patriots are more like on par with the Broncos' talent offensively. There's just not a lot. Jacoby Brissett is obviously a veteran quarterback as opposed to rookie Nix. But when it comes to the outside weapons, outside of Cortland Sutton for the Broncos, I just don't see the talent there. Same thing with the Patriots. And the Patriots just matched up really well with the Bengals last week. I was on the under, and I even said in my write up on Sunday that I think the final score was going to be 17-6, and we were right around there. I forget, it was just a couple points off. I just didn't expect a lot of offense from either team, but I think the Seahawks offense can definitely do enough to score on this Patriots D. And the Patriots are not going to be able to have that same level of success running the ball as they did versus the Bengals, and they're going to have to force Jacoby Brissett to make plays through the air, and I just don't see it happening against Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks defense. I like Seattle minus the 3.5 versus the Patriots. The Colts at the Packers. The Colts are a 3 point favorite with the over under at 40.5. Now, there's some concern about the Colts going on the road where their defense absolutely did struggle late in the season last year, but they just got absolutely gashed on the ground by the Texans and Joe Mixon last week. Um, but the difference is the Texans also have an elite passing game that the Colts had to worry about in that one. That is not the case with this Packers. They lost Jordan Love. I mean, he's still not officially ruled out, but I'd be pretty shocked if it's not Malik Willis under center for the Packers. And obviously, if it is Jordan Love, then just forget everything I'm saying. But Malik Willis is bad. 3 career starts for him, and he's yet to throw over 100 yards in a game. LaFleur is definitely a better schemer than what he was dealing with in Tennessee, but I'm still not expecting that much of an upgrade. There have been 100 QBs in the NFL over the past 5 seasons that have taken 100 dropbacks or more, and Malik Willis ranks 100th. He is dead last in EPA per play. That's behind guys like Trace McSorley and Josh Rosen, too. No disrespect to them guys, but they're career journeyman backup quarterbacks, and Malik Willis is much worse than them. The drop off from Love and Willis cannot be understated. It's the Colts or nothing here, and I'm going to lay the 3 with the Colts. I could never back Willis and the Packers. Jets at the Titans. The Jets are a 3.5 point favorite with the over under at 41.5. Now, look, I know this Jets offense looked abysmal outside of the one drive last week. But I expected Aaron Rodgers to look a little rusty. I was not expecting him to look that rusty. But again, they were playing the 49ers, one of the best defenses in the NFL. So I'm expecting a better performance with the week under his belt and now facing this Titans defense. And if you want to know what to think about the Titans offense, just ask their head coach, Brian Callahan, as he said, if they would have punted, he said, what do you say? I have it here. If we had just punted on first down every drive in the second half, then we would have won the game. That's not a good thought to have on your offense or your young quarterback in Will Levis. Things aren't going to get any easier for Will Levis and the offense in this one. The Jets have a very talented defense. I know they looked bad last week versus the 49ers, but that again is the 49ers. And the Jets offense was stagnant and kept putting the defense back on the field. They were on the field a ton in that game, so they were gassed by the time as the game went on. And I'm expecting a better performance out of the Jets defense in this one. I think they get right, and I'm laying the 3.5 with the Jets. The Giants at the Commanders. The Commanders are a 1.5 point favorite with the over under at 42.5. Now, look, the Commanders actually decent, I guess, last week versus the Buccaneers. Flash here near Jaden Daniels, the rookie quarterback, got in the end zone a couple times, and the Giants just looked terrible. The Vikings defense looked much improved under Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator. I still think their secondary is really flawed, but Flores, like I talked about earlier, really confused and disguised his coverages well and had Daniel Jones in a flux. But this Commanders defense is much, much worse than that Vikings unit, and their secondary might even be worse as well. I think they might have the worst unit in the league. This is a bounce back week for the Giants in this offense. And if it doesn't happen this week, Giants fans, then I'm sorry, it's never happening. Just chalk it. Just know your offense is absolutely terrible if they don't have a bounce back week versus this atrocious Commanders defense. I'm actually going to take the Giants on the money line, minus 102 in this one. At plus money, I'm going to wait and obviously and hope plus money pops up with people just wanting to fade the Giants after the way they looked last week. But minus 102 is where it's at right now, and I would still feel comfortable making that bet. I like the Giants to win this game. Rams at the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a 1.5 point favorite with the over under at 47.5. Now, the Rams are going to be without Puka Nakua and are also banged up on their O line. Normally, for most teams, it would be a major red flag, but McVay and the Rams just kept right on rolling against a really good team, too, in the Detroit Lions. Stafford spreads the ball around, and they also have decent weapons next to Cooper Kupp, especially with the speedster Tyler Johnson coming over from the Buccaneers now with the Rams this year. And I expect them to be able to just score just fine versus this Cardinals defense, who isn't really anything special. And then the Cardinals offense is moving the ball early on versus the Bills, and then they hit a wall. They definitely have to get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved if they really want to have success. And the fact that he only had one catch, I believe, last week, and Kyler missed him wide open for potentially the game-winning score. I expect it to be a priority to get the ball to Marvin Harrison in this one. And if they do, it's obviously an upgrade for this Cardinals offense. I like the over here, 47.5. The Rams are still more than capable to be put up points versus this Cardinals defense. And I think the Cardinals are going to be able to score as well on this Rams defense. Bengals at the Chiefs was supposed to be the game of the week for most people, but the way the Bengals looked last week, it's really hard to imagine that people are that excited about this matchup anymore. The Chiefs are a 5.5 point favorite with the over under at 47.5. I really like the under 47.5 in this one. If you just talked about it, Ramondre Stevenson and the Patriots pounded this ball down the Bengals' throat last week, and they really had no answer for it. And the Chiefs with Isaiah Pacheco should be able to run all over them as well. They have a better offensive line than the Patriots do. Obviously, the threat of Patrick Mahomes and his passing game will still leave the running lanes open. And Pacheco and the Chiefs offense should run wild in this one. And then as far as the Bengals offense goes, I mean, T. Higgins is still not expected to be in this one. Joe Burrow still coming back from that wrist injury, didn't really look that comfortable in there. Had a touchdown called back to Mike Gesicki, and obviously Tanner Hudson fumbled at the 1 yard line. But that being said, for the duration of the game, this Bengals offense just did not look right, and I'm still not expecting, just with the lack of talent next to Jamar Chase in this one, and two question marks at running back. Although I'm a fan of Chase Brown, mainly more so as a pass catcher. The question marks at running game really hold this offense back as well, and the talent's just not there until T. Higgins gets back outside. So I like the under 47.5 here. I think it's going to be a low scoring game than people expect. The Steelers at the Broncos. The Steelers are a 2.5 point favorite with the over under at 36.5. You could not get me less interested in this game. The Steelers obviously have an elite defense, but this Broncos defense is decent, especially when you got a guy like Patrick Surtain on the outside who just takes away wide receiver ones and makes it tough for the offense. Just completely wipes off half of the field. I just don't know what I'm getting from either of these offenses on any given week. I'm expected to see Justin Fields again for the Steelers, but I mean, what does that even mean? Like Justin Fields is the most like up and down quarterback in the NFL the last few years. I just can't put stock or trust into either of these teams. It's a hard pass for me in the Broncos Steelers. Bears at the Texans on Sunday Night Football. The Texans are a 6.5 point favorite with the over under at 45.5. Now, I'm going to imagine I'm going to end up with a play on this game, but I can't say that I have a definitive play in this one right now. The Bears defense looked as good as I expected last week. They were a top 10 unit last year once Eberflus took over control, and they picked up right where they left off. But the offense really struggled. I mean, Caleb Williams, not even only throwing 93 yards, I believe it was. And then now they're dealing with injuries to the wide receiver core, and guys like Rome Odunze popped up on the injury report. So it remains to be seen if he's going to play. And the Texans are the better, obviously, overall team than the Bears in this one. But this is going to be the first time that they're this big of a favorite in the Stroud to Miko Ryan's era. I know it's only been one season and one game, but it's still a different spot than people are used to backing the Texans here, used to backing them as a small favorite or a slight dog. Now you're expecting them to go out and win by margin over a team who has a pretty good defense. I just don't know if I'm sold there now. I want to monitor the injuries and then probably we'll have a play on it as the weekend gets closer. Now to Monday Night Football, the Falcons and the Eagles. The Eagles are a 6.5 point favorite with the over under at 47.5. This Eagles defense is set up for success in this one. They played better than people are giving them credit for in week one, in my opinion. The offense put them in bad positions early in that game, a few times actually, early in that game, and they didn't break. They held the Packers to field goals, kept them out of the end zone, and they really only allowed a few chunk plays from shut down Josh Jacobs for the most part. Wilson had some success with some big plays when he came in, but for the most part, I thought they did a really good job on the run game and a decent job overall considering the positions they were put in early in that one. It only gave up a few chunk plays, and the Packers didn't really get to sustain drives. And I think a big key was that the Eagles' pass rush didn't really get home to Jordan Love, obviously, except for the play where he got hurt. Never want to see that, but that was really the only time the Eagles really got to Jordan Love. And but the field, I think, had a lot to do with that. It was a slick condition soccer field down there in Brazil. They're going to be back home on their home turf where they're very comfortable, and I expect them to get after Kirk Cousins in this one. And I would be not doing you I would be doing you guys a disservice if I talked about Monday Night Football and didn't mention, which isn't a secret anymore, Kirk Cousins is the worst quarterback in the NFL on prime time, and the Eagles draw him. They beat him in the home opener last year when he was with the Vikings, and they beat him in the home opener 2 years ago when he was with the Vikings. Now here we are, Kirk Cousins again finds himself in Philly the night of the home opener. Crowd's going to be rocking Monday Night Football, and in comes Kirk Cousins, who's one of the worst, probably the worst quarterback in prime time. It's the Eagles laying the 6.5, and I'm also leaning the under in this one. Not officially there yet, but I do like the Eagles minus 6.5. As always, for my opinions, you can follow me on X at Redden Sports, on Instagram at Red Hot Locks. That's where all my links are, posting all my content and stuff. If you miss anything, I want to check it out over there. And then if you want to know my official plays for the weekend, I'm on Dub Club. Red Hot Locks. Again, link is in my X bio, IG bio. If you're watching on Facebook, you can find it somewhere on my profile, or shoot me a message, and I'll be glad to get that info over to you. But college football and NFL with my best bets, parlay today, and how much I'm betting on each game with unit sizes, so you can know exactly where my confidence level is in each game. That being said, best of luck, bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you next week.